7 multiplying integers, and in this lesson you learn how to multiply integers. In the past two lessons we learned how to add and subtract integers. In the next two lessons we will learn how to multiply and divide integers. Let's take a look at this example in oceanography. Robert Ballard and his team from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution are scientists who have discovered such famous shipwrecks as the Titanic and Lusitania. In 1989, they discovered the sunken remains of the German battleship Bismarck, which sank in 1942 during World War II. The Bismarck sank in 16,000 feet of water in the North Atlantic. The team used the research submarine Alvin to locate the hull. It took Alvin 2 hours to reach the Bismarck on the ocean floor. Its rate of descent was about 100 feet per minute. At this rate, how far would Alvin descend in 3 minutes? So this is a classic example of multiplying integers. And in order to solve this, okay, we know that the submarine descends 100 feet per minute, or it moves negative 100 feet. Remember that when you talk about above sea level, and below sea level, it's like a vertical number line. Okay, where sea level is your origin or the zero. Okay, and above sea level are your positive. Okay, this is above sea level are your positive integers. Okay, and below sea level are your negative integers. And that's the reason why here the submarine descends 100 feet per minute, or it moves negative 100 feet in 3 minutes. So it will move 3 times negative 100 feet. You can find this product by using a number line or by observing a pattern. So if we get that number line and we make it horizontal, we will use method number 1. Okay, and this is how the number line would look like. So at sea level, we go down negative 100, negative 100, negative 100, because it descends at negative 100 feet in a minute. Okay. In method 2, this is how we do this. Okay. So we now have 3 times 200 equals 600. We use patterns. 3 times 100 equals 300, and 3 times 0 equals 0, of course. And if you look at the pattern, it's always negative 300 feet. So we simply multiply 3 times negative 100 equals negative 300 using patterns. And from this pattern, okay, so we know that 3 times negative 100 is negative 300. In 3 minutes, Alvin will descend 300 feet. Using this, if 3 times negative 100 equals negative 300, and then using the commutative property of multiplication, negative 100 times 3 equals negative 300. Okay? Notice that in each sentence, one integer is positive, the other integer is negative, and the product is negative. The pattern above and other similar examples suggest the following rule in multiplying integers, that the product of two integers with different signs is negative. What it's simply saying is this, okay? If you have a positive multiplied by a negative, or if you have a negative multiplied by a positive, the product will always be negative. Okay? So let's take a look at example number 1. M equals negative 5 times 18. Okay? So in this case, the two factors have different signs. Negative 5 is negative 5 and positive 18. So M equals, let's copy that, negative 5 times 18 will give you a negative result, which is negative 90. Example B, 6 times negative 12 equals N. Again, the two factors have different signs, the product is negative according to our rule. So this now becomes, copying the problem, 6 times negative 12 will give you a negative 72. Okay. Example 2. Example 2, before we go to example 2, here we go. Okay. In example 2, basically what it's saying is that if we have two integers being multiplied and they have the same sign, the result will be positive. Okay? So again, if we follow the pattern that we did in example 1, before example 1, two integers multiplied which have the same signs will have a positive result. The product of two integers with the same sign is positive. So basically, in this rule, it's saying that a positive times a positive, or a negative times a negative, will always result, or will always have a product that is positive. Okay? Taking a look at example number 2, solve each equation. You have negative 8 times negative 15. You now have the two factors have the same sign. The product is positive. So copying the problem, negative 8 times negative 15 will give you a product of positive 120. Okay? Look at the next example, letter B. Negative 7 times negative 5 times negative 4. Okay? It's just saying two integers with the same sign, but you now have three integers with the same sign. So, using the associative property, we can do this. Negative 7 times negative 5 times negative 4. Okay? So we have two integers with the same sign, they're both negative, will result in a positive, which is 35, and multiply that by negative 4. So again, we're only discussing two integers with the same sign. So in this case, negative 7 and negative 5 have the same sign. It gives you positive 35, and simply bring down negative 4. We now have a positive times a negative. Okay? And we know that a positive times a negative will result in a negative sign from our first rule. So the answer would be negative 140. Okay? Let's take a look at example number 3. The temperature between the ground and 11 kilometers above the ground drops 7 degrees for each kilometer of increase in altitude. Suppose the temperature 2 kilometers above the ground is 0 degrees Celsius. What would the ground temperature be? A lot of ways to solve this problem. You can make an illustration if you want. You can illustrate this, and you can draw it out. Okay, but we will use the rules of multiplying integers to solve this problem. Let's see what we know. The temperature 2 kilometers above the ground is 0 degrees Celsius. And the temperature drops 7 degrees for each kilometer of increase in altitude. You need to find the ground temperature. Let T represent the ground temperature. Remember, in any word problem, we need to define the variable. In this case, okay, since we are trying to find out the ground temperature, we let T represent the ground temperature. Okay? Negative 2 represents 2 kilometers lower, and negative 7 represents a drop of 7 degrees. Now, our plan to solve this problem is simply write an equation for this one. Okay? And in writing our equation, this is what we come up with. So we have the temperature, ground temperature, which is represented by T, is equal to, got the equal to sign there, okay, is equal to the temperature at 2 kilometers, which is 0, adding the drop of 7 degrees per kilometer, okay, which is 2 kilometers lower, is negative 7 times negative 2. Okay, need to understand that. So drop of 7 kilometers per kilometer, and since it's 2 kilometers lower, we multiply it by negative 2. So you have a negative 7 and a negative 2. Now the equation simply goes something like this: T equals 0 plus 14, because a negative times a negative will give you a positive. So simply put, T is equal to 14. Okay? The ground temperature is 14 degrees Celsius. And if we try to check our answer, since the altitude is decreasing, the temperature rises, the answer is reasonable. Okay? Let's take a look at the next example. The next example, let's connect this to algebra. You can use the rules for multiplying integers to evaluate algebraic expressions and to simplify expressions. Remember, when we say evaluate, there are two things that we need to consider when we say evaluate. Evaluate means to find the value of, and the two things would be to substitute. Okay. And number two, simplify. So two things to consider when you see the word evaluate. Okay, evaluate 2ab if a is equal to -3 and b is equal to -2. Again, we substitute the values of a and b, and that's the reason why we replace a with -3 and b with -2. Okay, and then using the associative property of multiplication, we group -3 and -2, and we know that a negative times a negative will give you a positive, so this becomes 2 times 6. Okay, and 2 times 6 simplified will be 12. So when we evaluate that, the answer would be 12. Okay, find the product of 3 and 8m. Okay, so -3 times 8m. First, we group -3 and 8 using the associative property of multiplication. Okay, and then since a negative times a positive will give you a negative product, you'll have now -24m. Okay, so the product is -24m. And that's it. Finish our lesson. Multiplying integers. On Google Forms, type a summary of what you've learned by responding to the objective of the lesson, and type a question you might want to ask in class about this lesson. Thank you.